So fantastic. Well, let's get started. Welcome to Monday Mindset, where you guys come every single week to change your minds. And why are we trying to change our minds? Because when we change our minds, we actually change our businesses, right? So being able to strategically think about how to change our businesses instead of struggling. If you do that, you're one step ahead of me. I spent years struggling and not really doing the right things. And so that's why I invented all the stuff you see me involved with, our agency fast track program and the Monday Mindset. I'm out here trying to help others kind of skip the journey I was on and show them some of the cool new ways that we figured out how to do stuff. Remember, guys, I'm no smarter than anyone else. I just am a little farther down the path on the journey, right? So I don't have the college degree. I don't have a business background, any of that stuff. I had to figure it all out for myself. Fortunately, like you, I joined groups, I grabbed programs, and I put it all together to figure it out. So today we have a hot seat. If you don't know what a hot seat is, this is the first time you're coming to actually see a hot seat. A hot seat is literally when we bring somebody, especially somebody from one of our groups, one of our programs, et cetera, to come on and tell us about their journey, tell us their story, tell us what they're doing, what they're implementing, the successes they're having. Because my story, as interesting as it might be, gets boring after a while, right? We want to hear from other people other than me. And today we have somebody that I truly respect and admire, Mr. Brian Kato. And he's going to be sharing his story with us today. So everyone in the comments, go ahead and give Brian a super fantastic warm welcome and tell him hello and that you're excited to hear how he took a client who was paying $18K and he was able to up their price, so to speak, or increase what he was charging to almost $50K. And that's the story I wanted to hear. And that's why we invited him to the hot seat. But before we begin, let's learn a little bit more about Brian. Brian, welcome to the call. Thank you for coming today and sharing your story with us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me today, Lisa.
You got it. So Brian, I always like to start, I like folks to kind of get a better idea of who we're talking to. So can you tell us, just like in a couple minutes, what your journey is? When did you start your business? What type of products do you really focus on? And if you don't mind, tell us kind of where you were maybe before you started working in our programs, like, you know, what level. I don't need the exact dollar figure, but just give us a good idea.
Yeah. So my journey in digital marketing actually began, surprisingly enough, as I was mentioning, I was a musician for a number of years. And what I started doing was building websites, decided to build one for, my own projects. And really, at that point, one of the things that I really kind of learned was guerrilla marketing, being able to have a little bit of street smarts as well as having those book smarts when it comes to marketing. And I think that was really, something that helped me succeed back in the MySpace days, right? That dates me a little bit, but yes, that was one of our main tools. We're looking at this going, man, I can click a button and invite people to a venue or a show, and I don't have to freeze my butt off at 2:00 in the morning when bars close down. This is insane. So understanding the power of the internet at that point very early on. From there, I had kind of done a little bit of dabbling here and there in digital marketing, and then actually started working as a project manager and head of SEO for an agency. So in doing that, there were a lot of things that I learned in the agency. Obviously, a great experience to understand how an agency works, but I felt like there are always certain gaps that you kind of miss, in any case, and understanding the right groups to be in, surrounding yourself with the right people, and really kind of filling those gaps, constantly learning, constantly applying what you're learning. And that's really one of the things that I found was really helpful for me. So as far as where I was a year ago, 2 years ago, and so on, 2 years ago, I'd gotten involved with a couple groups, started accelerating my business, and in 2020 was growing it fairly well. 2020, I actually met you during SEO spring training which was really interesting. And we had a really great conversation. And one of the things that really kind of stuck out to me in wanting to join Agency Fast Track, as well as Agency Fast Track 10X, was there was a comment that you'd made about different kinds of baggage that we carry with us into different projects, or different biases that we have as we approach particular clients. And when we let that go, one of the things that does for us is I actually coined this term with my kids a lot, but let it land. Let it land, understand what it is that the client is actually needing, because when they were coming to me for, say, digital marketing services, search engine optimization, pay-per-click advertising, any of those kinds of things, what I was finding is it may not necessarily be what they're actually looking for. They may actually be in need of pay-per-click advertising, or they may be in need of SEO, or they may be in need of an entire website design. They're saying, hey, I'm not being found on Google. Well, if you look at the site, it's circa 1998. Looks like, it was built in front page. And that's not, you can throw all the SEO that you want in the world at it, but it's not going to convert. And I think there's this unsaid expectation with a lot of clients that if they give you $1, they want to see at least $1, if not $2.50 or $3 for every dollar that they're giving you. And I think that that's a common issue within our industry, is that people just go, well, marketing is marketing. Half my budget's effective, half isn't. But which one is the effective part? I don't know. And so I think that to me was one of the things, getting involved with Agency Fast Track and AFTX 10. I think that was one of the big things that I was really kind of taken back by, and kind of really started applying into my own business, was how do we take that, let it land, and really help that client along the journey, not just from the traditional implementation of search engine optimization or website design or things like that, but looking at it from a more holistic standpoint, and being able to bundle, being able to cross-sell, look at your joint venture partners, look at a lot of these different things. And really, one of the key takeaways that I took early on in the course, in addition to letting go of the baggage, was communication with your clients. I know one of the things you'd mentioned, Lisa, was being in constant communication. You're leaving money on the table if you're not constantly updating the client. You could let them know, hey, Google's doing some funky stuff June and July. Be in contact with them. Let them know, hey, here's what we can do. Here's some additional things that, by the way, we offer these other services. We offer print. We offer, do you need business cards? We can help you out there. Those are small little quick wins that you can do to really scale your agency very quickly. And they're for all intents and purposes, relatively low intensity as far as your activity level, but they can have a very profound and very high yield from the client's value perspective.
Yeah, so I love that. Let it land.
Yeah.
Love that. And nothing is worse than a client prescribing what they want. That's not what they need. And then watching marketing folks do what the client asks, even though it's not what the client really needs, right?
Absolutely.
So I love that you said that, because many customers think they know what's best for them, but our job is to educate them so they make a better decision. So they come back and say, oh, you're right. Yeah, maybe we should do that. Notice I never say, go tell the customer what they need. We don't do that. What I like to always show people is, how do you make it their decision? How do you make it their idea? When you do that, you have so much buy-in. It's incredible. So
Absolutely.
Brian, tell me, what size business do you have? So without going into Uber details, I mean, are you a 5, 6, 7-figure business?
Right now, close to, well, it's about a 6-figure business, and really looking at scaling. So
right. Okay.
that is my big thing right now, is taking it from where I was at in 2020. Well, 2019 to 2020 was a great year. Like, a lot of people were down in COVID, but again, the thing that I found in that was, if you pivot, COVID wasn't ideal for anyone, but you take lemons and make lemonade. We pivot, we find the opportunity. And that, I think, is again where the communication with the client really came in handy. You can take that client, you can pivot them, you can be the advisor, and that I think, to some of the lessons that we've learned in Agency Fast Track, be the consultant. Don't sell SEO services. Don't necessarily sell a website. Be their advisor. Be the consultant where you can help guide them towards, this is a good decision because it makes sense for your business. Pay-per-click advertising may not make sense for you all the time, because look at the pros and cons. I mean, if you need immediate traffic, pay-per-click's great. You can get tons of traffic. You can get it almost immediately. If budget's a concern, it's probably the coffin nail in your business. Search engine optimization. If you need, and setting those expectations, being upfront with the client, right? Making sure that they understand SEO is going to take time. If they're expecting results by month end, SEO probably isn't the best option for them. They may want to look at some other avenues. And I think that's, for me, that was one of a big takeaway. And in scaling my business, I think that was one of the things that's really helped out. Communication and expectations.
Awesome. So just to set the stage, before Agency Fast Track, the first course, I know you're now in 10X, but before the first course, what was your goal? Was it to double your revenue, triple your revenue? And how long ago was that? When did you join the program?
Yeah, so in 2019 to 2020, I actually had doubled my business throughout 2020. And then in going through Agency Fast Track, my goal is to take it, double it yet again. And then with 10X, I want to double that. So we're really looking at closer to a 4 or 6X on kind of what my agency is doing.
Right. And a lot of people ask me why I name it 10X. Does that mean we 10X our revenue? Does that mean we, 10X our business? It means whatever you want it to mean. Mm-hmm. Both programs always mean what you want it to mean. If you're making $10,000 a month, thinking that you're going to go from 10,000 to 100,000, in a year, while it's possible, it's probably not plausible. Right. And so 10X doesn't mean, oh, I've got to 10X it in 1 year or in 5 months. It's, you are putting numbers together. You're figuring out where you want to be. And then the most important part, the dreaming, gosh, that's easy, wasn't it? Right? Figuring out what you want. You already start spending that money, but putting a plan into place, figuring out how to spend your time. So everyone's here to hear the story that, by the way, guys, I don't know this story, so I'm learning it with you. Brian had mentioned to me that he took a client from 18K to nearly 50K. Mm-hmm. And I didn't ask him a bunch of questions because I wanted to be able to explore this with you guys live. So it's not scripted. It's not something we plan. So Brian, set the stage, without telling us the client, but set the stage. The client was already paying you around 18K. Was that a month? Was that a year? What type of services you were selling? Tell us about that client first and foremost.
Yeah. So initially that was per year. And one of the things that we were doing was just basic SEO services. It was some Google My Business stuff. It was basic on page, some link building, things like that. What we did to increase that to the 50K per year is we essentially started looking at other verticals. And I think one of the big issues that we see with that I'm sure you see even within your own agency, Lisa, is that people tend to be a little bit, or working, not necessarily your agency, but working with other agencies. People tend to be really gun shy about asking for more money. But if the work you're doing and the amount of work it's going to take to get them those results is going to cost more money, there's absolutely no shame in it. And when we've talked about how to price your things, the worksheets and things like that in 10X were absolutely just priceless. Being able to show, a worksheet where it's like, hey, look, we don't actually give it to the client, but look, this is why it's going to take what it is. This is all the work that we're doing, right? 1, 2, 3, this is what it's going to take to actually fulfill what it is that you want. Now, this could be as a simple spreadsheet. I mean, it doesn't have to be as robust and built out as you guys have it, but in having a tool that you're able to then show a client and say, well, what's your goal? Do we want to increase that budget by 10%? And look what that does to your bottom line. You can make simple calculations. And again, it puts you in the position of not just picking numbers out of the air and throwing them at the wall to see what sticks. It's actually a very methodical way of approaching it, saying, this is what it's going to take. We know that this is a very high competitive market. Therefore, you're going to have to put in more effort. You're going to have to have these kinds of things going on. And I think also including the client too. That's another thing that I've been doing a lot with this particular client, was saying, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing. This is what I need you to provide. And again, that's expectations, but having them have a little more skin in the game, I think is one of those things that can really help. Also, it's funny and almost counterintuitive as it is, when you start giving the client things to do, like, I need you to gather X number of images from your business. I need you to do this. I need to know what's the most common question you guys are being asked, or what are the top 3 things that you guys commonly get asked if they don't have an FAQ page, right? Being able to give that, a little bit of that to the client, and they're still paying you for that. You can actually use that as not only market research, but really kind of crafting the entire plan around, okay, these are the questions that they are being asked constantly, and then applying that to the overall strategy. So I think that that's one thing that's just a lot of people just aren't doing right now. It's take what the client needs, help them get across the finish line, do what you need on the more technical or strategic component part of things, but definitely give them some skin in the game. They're going to be a lot more vested into it, and I think in the long run they tend to be a lot more appreciative of what you're doing.
They do, Brian. And I heard you say, and this is something to really kind of hone in on. You had a client, they were paying roughly $1,500 a month. So that's like 18,000 a year. You went and got them some results.
Absolutely.
Once you got those results, going through the program gave you the confidence. And remember, guys, it's not that Brian miraculously just got confidence. He was given tools. He was given the process. He was given everything he needed to go back in and say, okay, Mr. Client, look how great we're doing. This is the results I've gotten for you. This is what it equates to with the business you've received. Is this good, or do you want more? Are you looking to get more? Now, what customer, if you bring them results and you go to them and say, hey, look at how great this is working. Look what we're doing. I have a strategy to go bigger and better. Interested? How many of them are going to say no? If they're getting an ROI, a return on investment, if they're paying Brian $1,500, Brian, do you happen to know what the return on investment was at that point?
I believe it was right around 2.65.
Yeah.
Fold.
So they were spending $1,500. They were getting back somewhere around the 4,000 and change, right? So it's like saying, if I give you $1, you'll give me back $2.65. And if I did that on a consistent basis, how many dollars would I give Brian? If Brian could always give me back $2.65 or somewhere in there, I'd want to give Brian more dollars, wouldn't I? It just only makes sense. And that's as easy as it can be when you have all the tools you need, right? And absolutely. Brian, I don't want them to guess. So we talk about a lot of things in both programs. Brian is in the 10X program. So some of the tools he's talking about do come in 10X, not in the first program. And we have calculators. We have all sorts of tools you can use to go back, sales scripts, phone scripts, everything you need. It's 10X is more, I would say, like a franchise without all the crazy franchise fees or the ongoing fees. You pay for it once, you get everything you need, and then you have continued support through the group. So now that you've upped the game, they're now spending, what's their spend now?
It's closer to the 4,000.
Right. So So think about that. The client spent $1,500 a month. Brian proved he can bring in $4,000 a month. So psychologically, that customer, it was easy for Brian to come in and say, $4,000, because they know that's break even anyway. They're not losing any money to take this risk with Brian, right? They're not putting any more money out of their pocket. Technically, they're just reinvesting the returns. Notice the words I'm using. Those are the words you want to use with your customers as well, right? So listen, hey, we're getting great results, right? How would you like to reinvest that? And let's see if we can't up that to 8 or 10,000, in return. Brian, are those the kind of words you used?
Yeah, basically how I approached it was look at what we're getting in this particular market vertical. What about it? What about looking over here? Look at this other market vertical. There's opportunity over there. What does it look like for us to get involved with that particular market vertical? And then from there, we'll probably look at another one. And the idea behind it was to, again, you're charging what it is. I think, again, going back to the idea of people not charging what their true value is. And I think this is really common in digital marketing when you're competing against guys that say, we'll rank you on Google for 199 a month, right? And we all know that you can't do that. They come back. I've even used the services when I was at an agency, and they come back in a month and say, oh, that's a really tough market. We're going to need to we can go after these really obscure long tail keywords, or we're going to need to up your budget. And I mean, that's a really common thing. It's kind of absolutely. And when you approach a client with the data saying, look, this is actually what it's going to take to get results, you prove that you can get results. And I think, one of the things that in doing that, looking at, okay, this is what clearly defined your initial contract was for. Let's expand that. You want additional services? Not a problem. We can totally help you with that. But there's an additional cost there. I think a lot of people get caught up in the idea of, I'm going to throw in, an additional service, or we're going to go after, if we're in HVAC or plumbing, we're going to go not only this local service area, but then we're going to start attacking this other one here, and we're going to go this other one and pipe retrofitting, and then we're going to get into this other one, and they do it all under the same contract. While that's certainly possible, once you start getting results in one area, then you can start shifting. And if the market if it's necessary for you to ask for more money, don't be afraid to do that. I mean, when you're able to get results for clients, you should be able to ask for more money and confidently say, hey, look, I'm worth $1,000 per hour, right? We've talked about that in the group. And what's your time worth to you? Is it really something that, and again, is it something you need to be looking at? We've talked in Agency Fast Track and 10X about outsourcing. I think a lot of the common pitfall that a lot of people get into is not outsourcing soon enough and focusing on the menial tasks that really, data mining, data research, that's a task that as an agency owner, you really don't need to be doing. Focus on what's actually driving your revenue, what's bringing more business in, and focus on that Pareto principle, right? 80-20. What's the 20% of the work that's going to, really drive additional revenue to you? And, I just got done reading a book this last week, fantastic read, but it was talking about, taking 80-20. And what a lot of people don't realize about that is 80-20 is fine and dandy. It really works. But did you know you can 80-20 the 20%? And so now you're enhancing that even more. And you can 80-20 that 20%. And you continue to do this until really you've narrowed it down to what are the absolute most important tasks that you should be doing versus what else can be either outsourced or finding the right person, the right tool, the right, fill in the blank to accomplish that task. Will you stay focused on that 4% that's really going to drive the 10x traffic and revenue?
Yeah. And there's a lot of psychology around why we tend to focus on the 80 instead of the 20, or why we focus on the easy instead of the hard, or we focus on the less, the path of least resistance. And that is a big part of our agency fast track program. The first program is getting your head right, getting the psychology right, getting your business set up so you can in fact accept what we give in 10X. Because if you're not ready, if you didn't know this, 10X is an invitation only program. And unless you're ready, you're not invited to move on into that program for a reason. We want you to really get ready first. Otherwise, you're going to struggle. And when you struggling is never a good thing. So we definitely want to get everyone's head right. Brian Dale asked a really good question. It's up to you if you want to answer the first part of it. What industry was this client in?
So it's going to be in construction services.
Okay. And then when you're trying to find new clients, for example, in that industry or in a vertical, what method do you typically use?
So I typically use a combination of lead scraping. And then what I do is, and this is where a lot of people really falter when it comes to leads, is that they don't enhance their list. They're just sending out the cold email to anyone and everyone without really, taking the time. And again, this is really a task for a VA, but getting them to take your list, cull it, and enhance that list. So you're actually getting, again, 80-20. You want to have the best of the best. A lot of people also look at free tools or like free lead scrapers. I personally don't do that because I find that it's a waste of time in a lot of cases. If I can actually pay to, getting like their contact information, buying an actual like curated list of here's people that fit my exact demographic, I'm finding that like $2 on a curated list versus a free list, the $2 list is infinitely more valuable because I actually have, it's actually a much more potent audience, people that are actually looking for what the services that I'm selling or the products that I'm trying to sell, versus just the shotgun approach, right? Spray and pray, just throw it against the wall and see what sticks. So I think that for me, that's something that's really helped, is like, don't be afraid to spend money. And again, just as with the client, if they're paying $1 and they get $3 in return, it's the same kind of thing as an agency owner or someone that, is trying to scale your business, right? If you're not willing to, time is money. And again, whether it's going to the grocery store and picking up your groceries versus having them delivered. I know a lot of people, I always grew up with like, you take care of your own house, you do all this. And in being in 10X, the thing that I've really been looking at is, okay, well, what does that actually, involve for me to take time out of my day to clean the house, to do X, Y, or Z, versus having someone come in and periodically say, okay, it doesn't have to be every single day, but what does that time equate to? And what do those particular tasks take away from revenue generating activities? So I think that's a really important thing to kind of wrap your head around. Since this is a Monday mindset kind of thing, I would encourage people, as soon as you can, and hire a VA, hire an assistant to do the menial tasks that you shouldn't be doing. Not that you don't want to do, but that you should not be doing.
Yeah, there's a big difference between shouldn't, can't, and won't. And knowing the difference. I literally yesterday was mowing the grass thinking about agency fast track, because in agency fast track we do teach. Look, everyone knows that I've gone through agency fast track. I don't grocery shop. I don't go to stores. I don't do those things because my time is infinitely more valuable than walking around picking things off of a shelf. So I pay for that service. But then at the same time, why am I walking behind a push mower? I can pay someone for that service. Well, I need to work out. I need to get exercise. And that's how I choose to get exercise. That's what I don't like, standing on a treadmill and staring at a wall, or, watching a TV. To me, that's boring. There's no purpose. So we all have to pick what we do. Walking behind a, lawnmower is fantastic exercise, and it's double dipping by getting something done. To me, going to the gym, if you're going to go to the gym, that's when you should be listening to, replays and podcasts and training and things that, as you're working out, you're getting your nourishment for your business, things like that. So what Brian's saying is completely true. Pick and choose what you like, what you don't like. There's things I enjoy doing. I don't mind vacuuming. Again, that's exercise. It's upper body and moving my torso. So I choose what I like to do. And then the things that I'm not all that particularly fond of, or it's either way for me, like shopping for groceries. It's Instacart all the way because they'll deliver it to my front door. And if they would come and put it away, I'd have them do that too. But they don't do that. So Brian, when you think about, and I want to make sure Dale gets his question answered, when you think about your lead gen, so you're big on cold email, is that correct? So
no, actually,
a list and then do cold email, or do you have other methods, or what do you?
So one of my favorite methods is honestly video sales letters and warm email, or reaching out via messenger, kind of a social outreach kind of a thing. That by far, like that webinar, public speaking, those are probably my favorite methods, because you already have kind of it's a warm invitation, right? People already understand who, what you're all about, who you are, what you're doing. And I think that for me, that's kind of a preferred method. With cold email, one of the things that, again, you've got to overcome there is a bad list versus a good list. If you are going to cold email someone, you really have to have that good email list. You have to understand what it is, what are the psychological triggers that are going to make someone want to click through and reach out to you. The other thing with cold email that I'd add is, like, a lot of people get this, and I'm sure we've all gotten these emails where it's like, hi, I'm said SEO professional. Your website's jacked up. You're not ranking on Google because of blah, 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 blah. And we can help you. The thing for me is it's an immediate, it's kind of like going and getting sorry, this is probably going to put like car salesman on blast here, but it's kind of like looking at a new car and seeing that guy come out of the office and you're like, oh, good God, like, not now.
Here he comes.
And here he comes, and your wall immediately goes up, right? You're like, nope, just looking, not interested, just looking today. And I think the same thing happens when you're doing cold emails, where if you're not asking for permission first, and you don't need to have this big, long, drawn out email like, hey, notice that this is the kind of industry that you're in, maybe give them one or two nuggets like, hey, we noticed that you didn't have your Facebook pixel installed. Just wanted, is there something that we could do to help you implement that? Just something very simple, or hey, this is the service that I'm offering. Would you like to learn more? You don't need to go into like a lot of detail with that, but really what you're doing is you're just kind of piquing their interest. And I think a lot of us have the tendency, especially when it comes to cold email, to give this like, here's who I am, and this is the value that I can add, and this is the services that we offer, and blah, 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 blah. And you should really buy our service. Well, the customer didn't even say they wanted your service. Why would they reply to you? You're making an assumption. And I think that's something that, using the foot in the door strategies from Agency Fast Track, that's one of the beautiful parts about like even print, is that everyone needs a business card. That's not going away anytime soon. So that kind of a strategy where it's just your initial foot in the door, you're not trying to be pushy, but it's, again, the stepped value, or the stepped ladder, right? You can do print business cards. From there, you can go, hey, we noticed that you may need a little help on your website. Something like that might interest you? Then you step it up into, your ongoing digital marketing, and you can step it up and do more of an advisory type role, help them grow their business, coaching, consulting, things like that. And it's just a value, add. It's a layered value add on every step.
Yeah, and if you see this crazy beam and smile on my face, anytime I do a hot seat, I tend to just smile like an idiot, because when you hear people talking the way Brian's talking after he's gone through programs, you realize he's gotten it. He's made the leap in less than a year that took me 8 years to make. He's traveled the journey in such a short period of time that took me such a long period of time to figure out. And that's what our programs are designed to do, right? That's why, realistically, we changed and named our company Agency Fast Track for a reason. You know, everything's about a journey. All of our, stuff revolves around roads and exits and doing things. But the one thing I can tell you for certain, and I think Brian can attest to this, if you do nothing, nothing is going to happen. So what you need to do is start having a plan. So for instance, if like Brian, and that's the big deal today, and I want to keep focus on that. If you've got a customer that you're doing a great job for, and you don't know how to take them from $1,500 a month, for example, up to $4,000 a month, then investing in a program, investing in something like what we have to teach you how to do that, it's going to pay for itself 3 times over just with that first sale, if not more, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what you have to start thinking about. How do I, whether, it doesn't have to be one of our programs. Remember, Monday Mindset, our client acquisition and scaling Facebook group is separate of our Agency Fast Track family, right? It's a separate entity, but I'll be completely frank. It's to meet more people that I can introduce to our program. So it's a strategy for me. It's not just out of the kindness of my heart. I come here every single week. I am selling products, but I do like to give enough value that if you never buy a product, you still spend good time here, take away great nuggets. So Brian, when you look at the rest of your repertoire, when you look at the rest of your portfolio of clients,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what you just did, knowing that you took someone from 18K to almost 50K, does that give you like the hope? Does that give you right now, you look at that and say, okay, here's my next customer that I need to hyper focus on. Maybe I haven't been doing enough reporting to them. Maybe I haven't shown them enough how great I'm doing for them. So if you looked at just your portfolio you have right now, do you think you could double your revenue?
Absolutely.
Without getting another customer?
Yep. I absolutely think that's possible just based on the current clients that I have. I think being able to show the results, being able to, show them here's what we've done for one client, 1 to 2, here's what we need to do for you. And I think in doing that, my goal would be 50K a month. I think that that's realistic and very doable. Maybe not, this quarter, but I think that, being able to shoot for, here's what we want to do. We want to take each client, we want to increase the value. And there's obviously going to be some clients that it's just not the cards for them, and that is what it is. Again, let it land, understand that they're just never going to be able to up their budget. But those that are, understand that there's always more money available. And if you're showing them results, the bottom line is you have to show them results. If they're not getting results and they're still paying you, that's when that's when those uncomfortable calls happen.
And they're results, coming, correct?
Yeah,
Brian?
absolutely. So, I mean, I think that there's no getting around that.
Yeah, everybody here has had that feeling. If you've had an SEO customer that you were not getting results for, you think about it, you dream about it, you wake up thinking about it, you anticipate that call almost because it's inevitably coming.
Yeah.
So how do you make sure it doesn't come? And I'm shameless plug here, Brian, I can't help myself. How do you ensure it doesn't come? Well, with Agency Fast Track 10X, we make sure it doesn't happen because we have an exact, precise winning formula. We have all the tools to where if people don't have a good SEO platform, if they don't have a good SEO strategy, or for those people who are just tired of going to webinar after webinar and trying tool after tool, that's what 10X actually brings to the table. We give you that strategy already baked. We give you the processes. We tell you what tools are working today, what aren't working today. We tell you exactly what to do to where you don't ever have to go out and figure that out yourself. Now, let's be honest. We have members like Brian, for example. He's a very experienced, very good SEO already. He brings to the table. We have a lot of members in our 10X program that actually bring things to the table. And so it's not just what we're figuring out in our company, but it's also our members are bringing things to the table as well. And as we synergize, the processes are getting tighter. One of the things that, Brian, I know that you went through, and I'm going to ask you, so in 10X, we actually have an entire module, an entire section revolved around selling SEO. Do you think that helped you up your game at all?
I think that there were certain components of it, yeah, that really, I tried to, again, take my medicine, let it land. And even being involved with SEO, having the experience and being in several other masterminds and groups and stuff like that, that really helped me hone my skills on that, letting it land and saying, okay, let's approach this with a fresh perspective, let it land, and don't assume anything. There's always something even if it's one nugget that you can take away from something, that's one nugget of gold that you didn't have previously. And in approaching that, no matter what the course is, really approaching it with this sense of, okay, I'm going to go into it with an open mind, and I'm going to, I'm going to understand this is kind of 1, 2, and 3. One of the things that I shameless plug to 10X, one of the things that I did take away from the SEO thing, the SEO module, was also don't sell SEO. Sell them, because having the technical background that I do, it's easy to get into, oh, well, what you've got to do is you've got to set your canonicals, you've got to set your schema right. It's got to do all this, and this. The client doesn't care. Let's be honest. Yeah, they hear this, and one of the things that I've really done over the last year for a lot of my clients is really strip down my reporting. What are the most important KPIs or key performance indicators that they really care about? They want to know that the phone's ringing, that they're getting leads, that there's a positive ROI on whatever they're paying. All the other stuff, like we've reduced your page load speed. I mean, it's good to have that internally to know that you've reduced their page speed by, half a second. It's good to know. You should definitely keep track of that as an agency owner, but does that really matter to the client? Probably not. What they're going to want to see is, did we actually get phone calls, and whatever the leads that have been pushed through whatever services you're providing, did it actually have a financial impact on our bottom line so we can continue paying you? So I think that quit focusing on the vanity metrics. I think that's a huge takeaway for anyone, whether they're considering getting involved with agency fast track, 10X, anything like that. But focus on what actually matters to the client. Talk with them, talk with them money, talk with them in a more business sense, because that's what they're really going to respect and respond to, as opposed to the technobabble. Technobabble is great when you're dealing with your VAs. You should hopefully have a clear direction and a clear idea of what it is that you want to, steer your VAs in the direction of. But really, when it comes down to, again, surrounding yourself with the right team as well.
And always remember this. What would you want? If I said to you, hey, our agency fast track costs this much money, all you care about is how much money, if I go through this program, will it make me? How will it help me get better as a business? How will I benefit from this program? Mm-hmm. You don't care about all the little details. You don't care about what every chart looks like, what color this is, what color that. Customers are the same way. Yep. And while I do put in some of the KPIs Brian was talking about in the beginning, why do I do that? Because in the beginning, you don't have successes yet. You don't have leads. You don't have calls. So you have to show them hope. This is where you started. This is what we're doing. Wait for it. Once it pops, once things start happening. And yes, in 10X, Brian, this week, Brian's in 10X right now. This week is the week we talk about reporting and client retention and all those good things. And so, Brian, I think you're going to actually learn a couple more things that I do in our reporting and things that I do to actually keep customers kind of engaged. You heard Brian talk about how he's, constantly engaging the customer. That's beautiful. We want to do the same thing in reporting as well. For instance, and I'll just give you a little hint, if you constantly are telling them your 12-month strategy, how long are you projecting that they're going to stay? Another 12 months, right? So there's a lot of psychology that goes into every part of owning your business. And notice I said psychology. I didn't say you have to cheat the customer, you have to trick the customer. You don't. But there are little things that you can do within your business, that tiny little tweaks, like Brian was saying, these little nuggets make big impacts. Think about the price of gold, right? That's why we always call them gold nuggets. That's where, oh, we got nuggets of information, because like gold, they're precious, but they're valuable. Brian has shared, I think, one of the best, hot seat shares he can, to tell you, look, no magic button. We never promise magic buttons in any of our programs and anything we do, because any program or product or guru that promises you the magic button, run. Seriously, don't put your money down. There's no magic button. But what there was, and what he shared with you, is pretty simple. If you're taking somebody's money, your first job is to get them results. Your second job is to show them results you're getting for them. And then your third job is to tell them, I can get you more results. When you do those three things, those three simple things, that's how you go from a $1,500 a month customer to a $4,000. And Brian, I did the math, by the way, while we were sitting here. For you to be a $50K a month business, if you could get 12 customers paying you $4,000 a month, you're at $50K a month. 12. That's not a lot, guys. So my next thing, the next thing I would say to you, I would say to you, Brian, I would say to everyone is, if you know what you want, and go back a couple of Monday Mindsets where we talked about this. We actually brought Dave Castle up, and we had a little fun with him and talking about what his goals are. If you know you want to make 50K, you know it takes 12 4K SEO customers. What's your new mission in life, Brian?
Getting 12K or 12 customers, or getting 6, 7 customers and doubling that. That
will pay more than that. But exactly. Your goals are very simple. And then Brian said it earlier, don't get distracted with the 80%. 20% should be the distraction. 80% of your time should then be focused on getting those 12 customers. And I know people say, well, I'm going to need VAs. I'm going to need that. Yep. And as you bring on customers, you're going to start paying. It's funny because, Brian, I'll tell you, my monthly bills, wages, salaries, et cetera, now in my company are more than that a month. But like you, that used to be my goal for income. And now that's I spend more than that outgo every month.
Yeah.
And why? Because, my new monthly income is more than I ever dreamed possible. And so that's where you're looking to do, is strategically spend your time. So if you didn't get that today from Brian, go back to the replay and listen again. Brian is starting to spend his time more wisely. Think of your time like $100 bill, $1,000 bill. What are you willing to trade that money for, right? Take $1,000 bill. I don't know if that exists, but take $1,000 bill. What would you give that up for? Would you get it up for grocery shopping? No. Then why are you doing it today?
I like that analogy of,
yeah, the
like
hour
the
you
analogy
spend
of the $1,000 bill.
Could be worth $1,000, right, Brian?
Absolutely. And I like the idea of the $1,000 bill, because not only is that $1,000 bill, but are you willing to break that $1,000 bill for a task? No different than if you took $100 bill. Is it worth your time to break that $100 bill to go grocery shopping? Or is it worth it to break that for a particular task, for a, whatever the case might be?
I like that, Brian, because it's easy to spend a $5 bill, a $1 bill, or a $5 bill. A little harder to spend a $10 bill. $20 bill, we're still pretty comfortable with. But yeah, that $100 bill, man, do I want to break it? Because I know once I break it, I'm going to spend it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that $1,000 bill, I love that analogy. Do you want to break it?
Yeah.
I'm going to leave you guys with that. Brian, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I know that you've been an integral part of the community. You're always answering people's questions. For those of you guys don't know, when you join Agency Fast Track, you get a private Facebook group and a private Skype group. The Skype group is so dang hopping and happening, and people are asking people so many questions. It's a wonderful resource. And then the same in the 10X group. There's 2 private groups for that. Brian, hands down, is one of the most active, productive members that really contributes quite a lot, asks or answers a lot of questions. And I encourage you guys, if you join one of our programs, do the same. So how do you get involved? Today, if you're not in one of our programs, we are starting the Agency Fast Track X Success. That's the first program on August 17th. So it's coming up next week. And so we're going to be starting that program again from the beginning. I encourage you to get into that program. The money is an investment in your future, and we teach you how to get that money back and then some. So it's not about the money. It really comes down to the mentality. Are you willing to come in, like Brian said, with an open mind? Let us show you a bunch of stuff, and then you choose which order to implement it and start 2Xing, 3Xing, and like Brian's trying to do now, 4Xing his business, right? If that's something you're interested in, please type the word fast track. We'll pick a word, fast track, in the comments. If you're watching the replay, I want you to type that in. If you're already in the program, as you know, you can come back starting. We took a 3-week break. Why? Because Lisa took a vacation. I actually, for the last 10 days, rarely logged on my computer. I did my 10X program. I did those, but otherwise, literally, I have been offline. I've been enjoying all of my companies. By the way, I own 4 companies. All of my companies have run without me. And that is your goal eventually, not only to make money, but have that freedom lifestyle. And that's what we try to teach everybody in our programs. So again, if you're interested, if you're watching the replay, type fast track. If 10X is something you're interested in and you think you want to skip Agency Fast Track X Success, you have to type strategy, because we don't just let anyone in. You will have to have a strategy call with me. We'll have to talk about your business to make sure you're ready for it and it is a good fit. So you would just type strategy. Guys, it's Monday. Hopefully, Brian has given you some food for thoughts, because remember, when we change our minds, that is how we change our businesses. Again, Brian, thank you for coming. I look forward to watching your success. I know you're going to blow it out of the park, and I look forward to being a part of that and helping you do that. Just watching you shine.
Thanks, Lisa. It's been a real pleasure to being on the call today.
Awesome. Thank you. And guys, have a phenomenal week. Let this pump you up, get you ready, and we will see you next week.